So on the rare occasion, the port would be in use, 49200, which is also the same as the auto port on the server, and the server would just crash. And my usual response would be to restart Windows, and that'll free up the port. It's being held by like the system idle process or something like that. What I've done now is I've created an error message to let you know, and then there's a way to get connected quicker until the next time you restart, or in about 2 minutes when the system idle process will release that port by itself. So I've set mine up now to get that error intentionally. So if I turn the server off now and turn it back on, I'll get this warning saying the port is in use by the system idle process, and it will automatically set it to 49201 and require manual connection on the client, or restart or close the process. You can see down here now the port automatically changed to 49201. So if I want to reconnect now, I just go into my client, change it from auto to manual, change the port to 49201 and the IP address that's listed on the server. Turn the server back on, turn the client back on, and you'll be good to go. And then in a couple of minutes, the Windows will release that port. And the next time you restart the server, so if you close it down and reopen it, it'll be automatically set back to auto. And then you just go back into the client, change it back onto auto, and you'll be able to reconnect. There was also a bug in this focus commands to application where it wouldn't uncheck permanently unless you toggled the connect on off start as well. That's now been fixed, so any changes you make to this will happen immediately. Another thing that was added is on both the client and the server down the bottom here. There is a latest help videos button. If you press that, you'll need to be connected to the server if you're using the client. But if you're on the server, you can push that latest help videos and it will take you to the website help videos section where the latest videos will be posted here in the video guides. To keep the client from accessing the internet, if you're disconnected from the server, the client version won't actually do anything. But once you're connected to your server, if you push that button, the same thing will happen. It'll open that videos page on the website. So the next thing, I've removed the Space Sim Classic profile from the list of profiles we have now. Now we just have the general like test one, SC bindings, and Space Sim. SC bindings is a new one, and I suggest getting the latest version of this before setting up for something like Star Citizen. This is a Star Citizen specific thing. But if we go into that now and load this, we'll get a screen that looks like this. And then now when you want to bind all the new keys that are in Star Citizen, that there wasn't really any room to fit on keyboard shortcuts, so a lot of them sit within this Joy buttons section now. Now you can go into the Star Citizen keybind settings, and it will tell you here which section to go to, which option to pick, and then you can just push the button corresponding next to it. There's also the MFD buttons. These all are fairly self-explanatory, but there's 30 odd buttons here. There just wasn't enough room to put those on keyboard modifiers. So I've used vJoy buttons for all of these as well. Same thing. And then for the key buttons, the vehicles view ones down the bottom there, that's for the cinematics panel. And then the vehicles, shields, and countermeasures have had their default buttons removed. So this is just how to add those back in. Now, once I've updated this, I released it with a couple of errors. So I'm putting updated versions of this, and also as Star Citizen changes or adds keybinds, and the new MFD panel gets updated. We can get the latest update for this. First thing you want to do once you very first start is go back, go into the file manager on your client, go to your profiles in this drop down list here, select the SC bindings file and delete that. and then we'll go to the website and get the latest one. So to import the latest profile, you just go to gametouchcontroller.com, go up to the top and go to Community Profiles. Scroll down. You can either scroll down by yourself, or you can see a little over on the left here, it says Updated Style Citizen Bindings. You can click that, it'll take us down to here, and then we'll download the profile. Once it downloads, then we can just go into our Downloads folder, and we'll see that we've got the bindings profile that we've just downloaded. And then on our server, if we go into the File Manager and we open our import folder, and we just drag it from our downloads into the import folder. Make sure you don't rename it or extract or anything like that. You just drag the zip in just like that. Then on our server, we go into files and we'll see that that's now in our imports. And then import the profile. And you'll see now that I've got messages for the success or failure. Now that we've imported that, we can just go back to our client and check the little checkbox down here so that it only gets assets from the server. And then we'll go sync custom assets. And we'll see it receives the SC bindings file. And now we'll have the latest SC bindings file on our client. So now we've got the latest bindings profile. We'll just load that up from our custom screens here. And then if we want to allocate all of the new bindings, we can go into Joy buttons, and it will see here options, key bindings, advanced controls, customization, joystick HOTAS. So we get options, then key bindings, advanced controls, customization, and then down the bottom right we get to change keyboard and mouse across to joystick HOTAS. And then now we can go through and bind it. So if we go to the first one here, VoIP, and head tracking that we can see in the top left of our client, and we scroll down in our little list here, VoIP, and head tracking, and then we've got the push to talk global, which is just this one here, and we've got the push to talk local. So if we double click push to talk here and then push our Joy 123 next to the push to talk global, that will bind that. And then the same for the push to talk proximity or push to talk local. We can do that. And then same if we go to, for example, on the right hand side, and we can go and do all the other ones as well. So we've got vehicle, cockpit, as well as ground vehicles, general. So if we go to vehicles cockpit, and we need to bind open doors and close doors button. So we'll double click that, it says waiting for input. And then we do the next one. But then we also have to do it in ground vehicle general. So we scroll down, ground vehicles general, and we'll see that there is a open and close all doors here as well. So we can double click open doors, and once again push our Joy 10, close doors, push our Joy 11, and then you go through the rest of the list, the vehicle salvage, vehicles on foot, and vehicles, view and on foot all, and then on the right hand side all the vehicle weapons, etc. And once we've done those, we can do the MFD buttons. And it says there, options, keybinds, advanced controls, customization, joystick HOTAS, and vehicles multifunction displays. So we can see that here, going there. And then we've got cycle page forward short press, and cycle page backward short press. So if we double click that, we push the page forward down here, that little purple with the right arrow, and then same backwards short press, put the page back button, and we go through this whole list and bind them as they are there. So you've got on the left The MFD movement ones are your up, down, left, right arrows in the middle. The left cast is obviously that left cast that's pointing up to the left, the right cast, the cast pointing up to the right. Then you've got all the MFDs 1 through 9, which is over on the right hand side of the client. And then you have all the individual named MFD pages to set self status, target status, etc., which you can see on the left hand side of the client. And then the key buttons is the same thing, except now we have to go to options, keybinds, advanced scrolls, customization, and keyboard mouse. So funnily enough, I found a bug in Star Citizen. When you go back from the joystick hotos now, it opens up a a window to Spectrum automatically. So that's pretty funny. Anyway, go back to keyboard and mouse. And then we scroll down to vehicle shields and countermeasures. Where are we? Here. And we bind all those here, just same way we did those joy controls. So for example, for the shield res front, we just double click that when it's just waiting for input. We don't have to worry about these because that's fine. And we can go through the list. And then there's also the vehicles view. The vehicles view are keys which aren't bound by default. If they are, then use something different, change them to whatever you want. But that's for the cinematics panel. And now you've bound all the additional controls so that when you go back into the client now and you load what is the new space sim profile, and it asks you to save as a new profile, so we're just going to call this Star Citizen. And we save that. That will now load up our new Star Citizen profile for use. And this is now what the new panel looks like. It's got your logo here, where you can now import graphics and images to edit these in more detail. So if we can quickly have a look through the different panels, we have the FPS. I've tried to lay it out so it looks a little bit more like the ones that they're in game now. Flight 2, and you can expand that shield face to have big shields and collapse it to go back. Vehicles, mining, salvage, turrets, power. On the power screen, all of these like power buttons for the other things like quantum radar, life support, and coolers, they aren't in game yet, but I've included them in the panel here just so that we can add them later, and there's still room. Then you've got your MFD panel and the comms panel, which looks very similar to before. So one thing I'm not including with the keybinds, and I didn't intend to actually have any bound by default, although I must have missed one, is the vJoy actual axis for the pads and the sliders. And the reason for that is Star Citizen has controls bound to certain joy axis, etc. by default, and I didn't want, one of their sliders to be set to something that Star Citizen decides to have as, I don't know, like pitch or roll, and then have one of the things we had in the past where that's set to 0, and then you just start rolling. But anyway, to do those now, in any of the panels that have one, so for example, the flight panel has one here, not bound to anything, right? If we push the reset button on any of the sliders, when we're in the edit mode, it'll bring up the ability to like edit it and add the axis. So you see up in the top left, it'll say vertical axis. So we can go in here and change it to like, I don't know, slider 1 or any number of the axis that the vJoy has access to. So let's just say slider 1, for example, and we save that and close it. Now this will move the vJoy slider 1 so you can bind it to something in the settings. So just be mindful of what you bind those to, and if Star Citizen already has certain axis bound by default, like I know it does for like pitch, roll, yaw, etc. Make sure you remove those if you're not using them for flight, and you're just using vJoy and not a joystick. And then for the pads, it's very similar. So the mining one and the turret one has pads. The turret one's kind of set up so that you can, hold a phone and just steer it with the phone, etc., and fire. But if we hit the edit, we'll see we get this little move edit button in the middle. We can go into that and you pick your horizontal and vertical axis. Turrets are separate to everything else. They've got their own vertical and horizontal axis, no matter what you pick, as long as you bind them in game the same way. And then you've got the option here for like auto reset or sticky. So if we put it on to auto reset, you'll notice it like goes back to the middle. But if we put it on sticky, which might be better for maybe, I don't know, mining or some other such thing, set it to sticky. Now, like where we move it to, it holds the joystick there. So next thing I added was the ability to add your own custom graphics and text on each of the panels that aren't buttons, they're just images. So we'll go for a quick example now of putting whatever logo you want here, or your org logo or one of your ship manufacturers. So the first thing we do is on the server, if we go to the file manager, and then we open our import or export folder, doesn't really matter which one. And then when it pops up, if we just go up one level to the Gametouch server, we'll see now that we've got all these folders with all of our custom assets in it. And now we want to add a custom graphics. So if we go into the custom graphics folder, we can see the stuff that I've already included in here. And then we paste in whatever image that we want that's a PNG to use as our background. One I prepared earlier, I've got like a little RSI logo here. I'll just go and paste that in there. There's it, just the RSI PNG. All right, now that that's in there, we can close out of that folder. And then we can go back onto the client because that file now exists on the server. Go to our file manager, and then once again, with that option checked, we can sync custom assets, and it will go into the server, and it's found that RSI logo and brought it over to the client. Now if we go back into our newly created Star Citizen profile here, and we want to change that logo, so we go into edit mode using the cog in the top right, then push this move or edit button. Now if we go to images, we'll see that our little RSI logo is in there. And then we can get rid of the text if we don't want that anymore. And we just want the RSI logo. We can change the size and stuff using our like width, etc. We'll just make it, I don't know, like that big, and the height just come down a little bit, something like that. Save, and now we have our little logo there that we wanted. And if we want to add different custom graphics when we're in edit mode, you'll see now under the add elements there is a graphic text button, and you get that same sort of little window here. We can, make it whatever, add, and push and hold to move it around, put it wherever you want. So another change was added by community request was the ability to have, instead of the 24-hour time you see, or military time as some people call it, we can have a 12-hour time with the AM PM. And so to change that or to add a new one, we want to change the ones that are already here. If we go into our edit mode, and now we change this to clock 12 and save that. and we'll now see that it's a 12-hour clock with the AM PM. Same thing if you want to add a new one. That was just editing one. If you want to add a new one, you can just add a graphics text, call it clock 12, change the style and image and fonts and everything to be whatever you want. Let's just quickly change the font, change it to something like that. I'm going to take the image away, add that. Now you see that you've got like the clock 12, then it's missing some of the letters. So what we want to do is just edit the height, and the font size so that we kind of cut off that clock 12 bit, make it a bit wider, change the font size, and now we've got another clock there. So you just manipulate the height, width, and font size until you cut off the clock 12 that sits above it, and then you'll have another clock. Alright, so the next thing that's been done is the ability to duplicate buttons or duplicate panels in order to create these profiles a lot more quickly. And one thing I noticed, which gives me an opportunity to run through this, is I had some errors left on the actual template. So on the client, you see in the very bottom right, there's like a little template. And you can see this bottom bar here is too bright, so I haven't done that. And this top clock is one of the old legacy pretend to be a button type clocks. So we're gonna fix those really quick. So if we go back to one of the other panels where these things are correct, and we want to save the styles that we have. So the first thing we'll do is save the clock style. So let's save it as clock correct. And it's a graphics slash text. So we've saved that style. And then the bottom bar, if we go into that, save that style, we'll call it bottom bar. Save. And that's actually a button. And then we close out of that and go back and we can fix our template. So the first thing we're going to do is just delete this legacy clock as a button type thing. So we'll just delete that. Then we'll add a new graphic text, load our clock correct style, add that in there, and then just move them up here. Go into our bottom bar, make that our bottom bar style, save that, and now our template is correct again. So now our template is correct, and we want to add a new panel to this screen, but we want to start with what the template has instead of starting from scratch every time. We can pick any screen to duplicate, but we'll use the template for now. So I'm going to add a new panel button. I'm just going to call it space test. And then I've already saved the style of the panel button. So I'm going to the style. I'm selecting panel button. I'll pick a random icon for the purposes of this. All right, and then now we're ready to add our new panel. But before we do add, see duplicate from. If it's set to none, it'll create a brand new panel that's blank in the default background. But if we duplicate it from any of these, it'll create a duplicate version of this that we can edit. For this purpose of this, we use the template. We'll add that in, close it. And now see if we go into our test screen, we have a brand new panel that we can edit, but we've already started with all the other elements in here. It covers across all of the controls, etc. So hopefully I've added the controls into here, which I haven't, but that's good. That gives me an opportunity to do the next thing. As you'll notice now that we have saved commands. And so this was the engines should actually be in the middle. Move that out of the way. Right, now we've put that back how it should be. We'll start with weapons. So weapons increase, right? So we want to add the command to this. If we did this in the template, then all of the commands would come across. So for example, if you see the accept buttons, it's got its bracket left. The decline button's got its brackets right. I must have just forgotten to add the commands to the template file. But now we have this saved commands list here that's underneath font in the middle. And I've already included all of these preset with the commands. So we're looking for weapons plus. So it'd be flight weapons plus, and we'll see if we select that command, it automatically brings across the on button press down F5 and on button release up F5, and we can save that, and we can go through and do that for any of the buttons that we add in here now. We can pick from the list of commands that are already in there. You'll see that one now has for these down when you push it down and up when you release it, so that because push to hold is set to max and just tap is just increase 1. As you can see, I've evidently missed a bunch of the elements on the template panel that I haven't done. So, and if you're making new panels, you might be better off just to use like another one of the existing flight panels or FPS panels, etc., as a template, depending on what you want, because they'll all come across with all of their commands and stuff. So if I duplicate it from, let's say, the flight panel, I'm just going to call it whatever. Won't worry about the style. We'll see now that these are all in here. They'll all have their commands already set. And then just delete whatever you don't want and save it as the, the new template. Or save it as whatever new panel that you want. So the next change, if we go into our away from keyboard, where we do our away from keyboard option settings now, we now have the ability to, instead of just use keys, etc., we can now use joy buttons as our AFK prevention buttons. These have benefits. So if we just, for example, make this joy 1, joy 2, joy 3, joy 4, joy 5. Or whatever spare vJoy buttons that you have. It's all lowercase, but it's a capital font. All right, we save those. So the benefit of using joy buttons is you can actually Alt-Tab out of whatever game it is, Star Citizen or something else, and it will continue to send the direct input keys into the game window, even though you're Alt-Tabbed. So you could be like using a browser or something like that, and it will keep pushing the buttons directly into the game that's looking for them, instead of pushing keys, which will go to like the active window. And these will all be applied to any of the AFK buttons that you create or use from your custom panels. So lastly, don't forget, now that we've created our profile from SpaceSim, if we want to go to one when we connect, we need to go in here and select it from here, not the SpaceSim, because it won't even be in the list, but for us, like the Star Citizen or SC or whatever we saved it as. And yeah, good. So now we have to unfuck this goat, whatever this bar going past it is. I'll fix that in the next version. But anyway, now that we've selected that our on connect go to, when we start it up, it'll automatically load that. And lastly, there's a bunch of other small changes and fixes, etc. On both the client and the server. Down the bottom right is the release version. If you push that, it'll bring down like a drop down that will go through wherever we're currently at, including the latest hotfixes, etc. that have been added since the release. Well, that's it for the major changes in the 11 update. Remember, if you have any issues, jump in the Discord, throw me a line, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And I'm going to bring a tutorial video on how to do like all the custom imagery and making like a full panel from scratch sometime in the next couple of days. Peace out.